Unboxing Careers.
Welcome everyone to the Unboxing Careers podcast, the show dedicated to discovering what careers are actually like. I'm your host, Greg Zakowicz, and on today's episode, we dive back into the world of trades with Tony Bertolino, a plumbing apprenticeship instructor and operations manager at Rob Bertolino Plumbing and Heating. So, Tony, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's going to be good. Looking forward to it very much. So, Tony, let's start with this. Give the audience a quick background about your current role and kind of finish up with what made you want to get into the plumbing business?
Okay. Yeah, so my brother and I, we own a plumbing company together here in Virginia Beach, Virginia. We're fourth generation plumbers, so it's been in our blood our whole lives. The only thing that's different between Rob and I is that I also teach the apprenticeship course here in Hampton Roads. I've just always liked teaching, so I teach the future plumbers, the adult apprenticeship in the evenings, 4 nights a week. I got into trades because my dad, he owned his own plumbing company. College didn't seem like it was going to work out because his company made too much money. So, so they weren't going to give me any financial aid. And so I decided to go into the field and start working. That was really how it went.
Was there something that, like, a lot of people that kind of follow into their either fathers or if it's passed down a generational business, sometimes you get a sibling in there that wants to do something completely opposite of that. They look at either the time and stress that goes into it. Plumbing is one of these things, I guess, based on the size of the company you are, where you might be on call a lot more often, right? So the work-life flexibility isn't there. Was there ever an inclination to go do something else? Or has it always, even if you wanted to do something else, has it always stuck in the background and be like, hey, you know what, I kind of like that? Was there ever that inclination to kind of go a different direction?
Yeah, oh, absolutely, right. I'm fairly certain I was like the typical kid, right? I mean, I would rather hang out with my friends and go do fun stuff other than work. And originally, when I was in high school, I wanted to work on Wall Street. I wanted to get my Series 7, and I wanted to do trading and all that because, apparently you could, if you were on Wall Street, you were a millionaire. So I was like, oh, that's easy. I mean, I got lucky, right? I didn't end up doing it. At my age, I would have been a junior person during the collapse in 2007. So I would have probably been first in line to lose my job. So yeah, that was what I originally wanted to do. That kind of fell through. So I went and I worked with my dad and did plumbing. And I was probably not the best as a kid and stuff. Realizing just how hard the work was and how difficult. But I enjoyed it and I stuck with it. The only other thing I ever did aside from plumbing was I took a little bit of time off and I worked at a Montessori school with 3.5 to 6-year-olds. And that's, I think, where I learned that teaching was ultimately the thing I would be the best at and that I loved the most. But fortunately, as you know, with the trades, it's almost endless amount of possibilities you can do with any of this stuff. So I became a teacher in the trades. And so plumbing has gotten me everywhere. An invitation to the White House, to teaching more kids than ever before here in this area. And it's worked out really well.
So I've got a bunch of questions we're going to get into between commercial, residential, kind of education, stuff like that. So we'll get into that here in just a minute. You mentioned invitation to the White House. Can you give a little background about, one, what that was from, and then two, did you go?
Oh, yeah. So I received an email, and it was really kind of nonchalant, like, do you want to come to this White House thing or whatever? This White House, I think, is how it read. And I was like, where? Like, what White House? And then they were like, the White House. And I was like, oh, yes, absolutely. Like, I don't even know what my schedule is, but yes, I will do that. The PHCC invited me because it was a workforce development thing. And I'm trying to remember, I think it was 2016 or 17. And so they invited me. And I got to go with a whole bunch of PHCC members and talk in the executive building of the White House. And they put us in Richard Nixon's private office where he used to get away from staffers, I guess. That's what it was explained to. And I did kind of think about the joke that you put all the plumbers in Nixon's old office. Is that I don't know that would have gone super well had I said that out loud, but yeah, it was quite an experience to be able to go there and talk to some people. I didn't meet any presidents, so
that's really cool. So one, there's probably no recording devices if it's a Nixon room. Two, did you watch White House Plumbers on? I think it was on Amazon, maybe, or Netflix.
Mm-hmm. No, I haven't seen it, but I heard about it.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Let's transition back here. So one of the things I love about this topic, a lot of the careers we focused on, at least the ones that are out so far, are a lot of the traditional college of careers model. And I want to get into the trades. I like the trades. There's the old saying, if you learn a trade, you'll never go hungry. Right? And I think with like HVAC, stuff like that, that's probably more true now than ever. Let's walk through kind of starting out. So someone who maybe is not interested in college, or maybe college isn't what they want to do, or maybe they want to go to college, but they always still want to be a plumber or work in that particular trade. What's the typical education path for someone, or maybe if it's not the typical one, the one that maybe you'd recommend someone go into? Like, what are they following from a type of school and stuff like that should they be looking for?
So I would say that, just if you're going to pick one, right, do a little bit of research. Yeah, well, I'll stick with like the big three: electrical, HVAC, and plumbing and stuff. And know what it takes to be a plumber, or what it takes to be an electrician or HVAC person in the trade. Just get an idea, and then just go apply for a job. There's no harm in starting a job that you don't like, and then if you're honest and you're like, hey, after a month, you're like, I can't do this, or I want to do something else. But most of these companies, they pay for your training. They take you all the way through, and it's a work to learn kind of situation. I mean, they're investing all this time, and when you start out as a helper, you're not really affecting the bottom line of a company. You're not helping them really achieve more unless you put a lot of work in. I mean, you're outstanding right off the bat, but they're paying you for your education as an investment. I mean, you're learning on the job, and then in most cases, you're being sent to school. In Virginia, it's a 4-year program. So start out in plumbing 1, you end in plumbing 4. You have to go for a minimum of 144 hours a year. And that's 2 nights a week, starts in September, ends at the end of April. And that is how you get your formal education. You don't have to go that route, but if you choose not to go to school, it takes 10 years of in the field to be capable of sitting for a license test. Now,
Okay.
if you sit and go to school, that's 5 years. As soon as you're out of school, you can apply for your licensure test and get licensed. So
if I just call up and I call Greg's Plumbing, I'm like, hey,
yep.
I'm looking at this. I want to get into this as career. They hire me. They're paying for me to go to school typically, while I'm also learning on the job. Correct. So I'm doing
Yep.
2 things here. If I just go to school, say community college or some sort of trade program, just locally, I can do that instead. Then take that and call up Greg's Plumbing and say, hey, I have this certification or this degree from XYZ, program or school. You start, what is those 2 paths there? What is kind of the difference of roles that the person going into that job might expect to do? So have no education, I'm learning on the job and also going to school. What type of tasks should I be looking at doing versus the person who maybe gets a certificate or a degree and then goes into the job there? Like, what is that difference between those 2?
So are you talking about if you were to go to the apprenticeship before you were working?
Correct.
Okay, so
Yeah.
in Virginia, and I can't speak to every state,
Sure.
we consider that an unregistered apprentice. So as an
Okay.
apprentice, you are required to have on-the-job training at the same time. We do. Every year I have maybe 2 or 3 that pay for their own education to get into school, and they use that as a gap to be able to get a job. None of them have ever gone 4 years. All of them are employed within the first couple of months, because as an employer, right, in a trade where no one is banging down the doors to come work for us, and all of these companies have a sign that says, we'll hire you on the spot or give sign-on bonuses, getting a call from someone who has invested their own money in the beginning of school, I mean, that's a no-brainer. You're gonna hire this. I mean, they want it that bad. They went before even getting a job. They put themselves in school, so they've got a leg up just as far as the way they would look to a potential employer. The other way around, like if you go in with no experience, I mean, you've got to wrap your head around the fact there's labor involved, right? It's a skilled trade, skilled labor. So, I mean, you're going to be working. I mean, you're going to work with your hands. You're going to get bumps and bruises. You're going to be crawling around. I mean, you're going to work when it's hot, when it's cold, in the rain. It doesn't sound fun, but if as long as your expectations are that, hey, this is what I'm going to be doing, you shouldn't feel bad about it. I mean, you know what you're getting into, so get ready. And the bottom line is, at the end of the day, it's lucrative, and where other people are struggling to buy homes, you won't.
So we see a lot on TV. We'll see advertisements for either trade programs or maybe community colleges that offer programs in the trade. Are those? It's a blanket question and a broad stroke here, so answer how you can. But are
Yep.
those typically targeted to people who are maybe who are currently in the trades and then looking at a program, or are they targeted for the people who are maybe looking at career shifts and they're trying to convince you to come over and career shift with them?
So my understanding with some of that is that there's grants and there's things available. So one of the colleges here did try to set that up and tried to have me involved with it, but the program was really seemed more geared towards the financial survivability of the institution versus the people they were just pulling off the street.
Sure.
It's hard to offer just, hey, come do this and see if you like it, without somebody having any sort of knowledge or drive towards the industry. So by advertising, for me personally, because I'm part of the PHCC, like we do. The foundation of the PHCC does a much better job at having some of these career focused online courses and stuff to be able to learn about what you're getting yourself into. Because I mean, you have to. It's not just the trades; it's every single thing you go do. If you want to be a pharmacist, you might want to know what you're getting into when you go to this career. So it's important, and there's not the high schools do a disservice because they don't talk about it anymore. The VOTEC classes are basically whittled away to nothing. So, people assume plumbers or janitors or digging ditches all day long. And, you just see the nasty, horrible, worst side of it. But, they never talk about the helping people aspect of it or how happy people get. And so anything you can do to get a realistic view of what it is. I'm just not familiar with all of the courses.
Sure.
I just, but if you can get an understanding of what it is or talk to somebody or apprentice with somebody just to see what it's like, that's your best bet.
Perfect. And before we get into actually the stuff you're doing on a day-to-day basis, one last question. So right now, it sounds like the recommended path is, hey, I want to go into plumbing. I call up Greg's Plumbing. They hire me. I start working for them. I'm also doing my program, probably nights and evenings, maybe weekends. I don't know. But you're doing that off hours.
Yep.
So fair assumption that that's your recommended path for the majority of people. And there's always going to be exceptions. But okay.
That is there's one other thing that they could do, and they could, if they really wanted to, they could seek out their local PHCC people, because since we're better people or best people, best practices, it gives them an opportunity. I'm sure that they would point them in the direction of a member company that offers the paid training, that offers these things, and they would have more insight. And they're plugged into the local scene, so it gives them an option of someone to talk to.
Perfect. Really good advice. Second question on that is, okay, so Greg's Plumbing hires me and they're like, hey, we'll pay for your training. Is there any sort of commitment you need to make to them? Because they're obviously making a financial investment on top of just the time, but they're making a financial investment in me as an employee as well, hoping that whenever I get my full certification that I stay with that company, correct? So is there any sort of commitment you need to sign to make up with them? What if I'm there for a year, I'm going through the training, they're paying for me, and I hate my manager, I hate the company, and I want to move companies? Like, can you walk us through kind of that structure a little bit? Yeah.
So, personally for us, there is none. We're going to send you to school. It's not really that expensive, and if you leave, you leave. That's just how we've done it. But as the instructor, there's the most common ones that I see are, we'll send you to school. If you get less than a B average, you're going to pay for it. So if you get an A, we'll pay for it 100%. They just want to make sure they're committed. Some companies do require a certain amount of time. So they say, hey, we'll send you to 4 years of school, but you got to give us a year. You got to be with us the whole time, and then you got to give us a year or 2 years after. Or you'll be financially liable for the thing. It's I don't see that very often with my students. Most of them are, when they leave or they go anywhere else, it's like they're just free and clear. Um, the ones that have the grades, they'll have to pay back if they were to leave. But most of the time, it's the other way around. It's not a big deal because I mean, if you consider trade school versus college, I mean, it's not even close. The money is just unbelievably different. So it's not that big of a financial investment to send your person there.
Excellent. And then let's actually get into the job here. So I'm entry level, just coming into a company. I'm going to work. What's a typical, I know typical is in quotations here, but like what does a typical day and week look like? Are we doing 8-hour days, 10-hour days, 12-hour days? Are we on site most of that time? What type of grunt work are we doing? Can you try to
Yeah.
give us a realistic look at what this looks like?
Yeah. So, and this is for me, not for everybody out there, but there'd be two sides to that. We have to do residential service and then commercial, right? So if we start with commercial, your days in this area are typically going to range at, you're on site at 7:30 in the morning. You've gotten yourself to the site. You are working on your tools all day. You've got 30-minute lunch, and then you're out of there like 3:30, 4 o'clock. Assuming there's no overtime needed or the project's going, in a way that they need to stack it up to make overtime happen in order to keep the schedule. But I mean that's your day. But you are working all day. You are on your tools. You're helping your gopher if you're brand new, right? They're going to make you run back forth to the Connex box. Anything that the techs don't want to lift, you're going to be lifting. You're gonna, but you don't have a decision who's on the top of the stairs, bottom of the stairs. It's whatever he wants you to be or she wants you to be. And that's it. You're gonna be learning about tools, different types of tools, how to use tools. You're probably gonna see soldering, brazing, all that kind of stuff, and that's your commercial side. Residential, you might start at 7:30, get to the shop at a central location, and then you're going to be put with a tech, most likely somebody that's going to need a second set of hands for the day. So then you're going to have more windshield time. You're going to be riding with that person. If you're driven, you're going to be asking questions about what's going on, what are we going to, what are we looking at. In our area, service calls could range from you're getting in a crawl space. You're going to pull the little axis off and you're crawling on your stomach to do these jobs. So if you're not okay with that, if that is a claustrophobia or something that you really have a problem with, you maybe don't want to do the service side of it because you'll probably find that, or you might be an addict, but you'll also be interfacing with customers. So in service, you're also going to be explaining problems, talking to customers, learning how to diagnose issues that you can't necessarily see because they're in the wall or the customer is giving you a list of problems that they're experiencing. So there's a lot. I don't want to say a lot more learning or what they're both pretty even, but you need to pay attention when you're in service because diagnostics is such a big part of the job. And so if you're expecting to just be the gopher and run and pick things up, then you're doing yourself a disservice in learning the diagnostic process. Both are going to include work. Commercial, as far as work, is, in my opinion, sometimes harder because if it's raining, you're working. If it's 100 degrees outside, you're working. If there's no air conditioning, you're working. We in service, we get to go inside houses. Hopefully the people have air conditioning in, right? Attics aren't particularly fun, but you're always in a different environment, and then you hop back in your truck and you go to the next one. And so you got that little bit of time. Now you will likely work later in service. So get over expecting a 4 o'clock or a 3 o'clock or a 5 o'clock deadline that you're off and you're going to go hang out with your friends. If you just eliminate that expectation and you're like, hey, sometimes I might work late, sometimes I might not. It's just this part of the job. It has to get done.
Makes sense. And you're going at least 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
Probably more on a lot of weeks. I don't say probably more, but good chance, a fair amount of chance that you're working a little over as needed. Would you rather be in a hot attic during the summertime or a nasty crawl space?
I mean, it depends on what you mean by nasty crawl space, but the I'm a I grew up in New England, so I really dislike the heat, and of course I know I live here, but I used to hate crawl spaces. I mean, crawl space. I grew up in a place where there was only basements, so like when I got surprised when I came here, and I was like, oh man,
Yeah.
and I that it was tough. But now I don't really care. I would prefer to get
Okay.
out of an attic faster because and you're getting dehydrated. Like you're getting burned up in an attic. I mean, in a crawl space, you're laying. You need a rest. You're laying down already, and you're not burning up, which is the big thing.
Gotcha. Makes sense. No spiders. Well, you get spiders. No snakes up
Not
in the
as
attic,
much. Not in an attic.
though. Okay, walk us through then kind of a basic career development for someone going into the trade here. So you kind of explain what you're doing starting off. What's that typical development look like? So how many years before you start getting more responsibility? And then what is that ultimate pecking order, like the potential look like for people?
Okay. Yeah. So that different from company to company. We operate where our guys go to school, and then towards the end of school, they get more and more responsibilities, and get the option to be able to be in a truck or do that kind of stuff. Really, the broad strokes are right. You start out as a helper. You're doing whatever medial tasks they're asking you to do. It doesn't matter. Digging holes, doing that when you become when you're put into school in the state of Virginia, you are no longer a helper because you are getting a formal education. You become an apprentice. Okay, and so you're no longer a helper. You're an apprentice now because you're in school. And they've invested in you. Now it's the expectation is that you're going to soak up and start learning so that you can reach the next step. All right. Some people, want to be helpers for their whole life. They want to dig ditches. They like the labor side of it. That's totally fine. And they want to stay there. But once you become an apprentice, there's an expectation that you will become a technician at some point, because we're investing in you. You're learning. You're moving forward, and that's how it's going to work. And this is service. So after a certain amount of time in school, you'd be likely be approached by a manager or somebody like that, and they're going to say, "Hey, you ready to get in a truck? You ready to start this? Do you know how to use the software that we use for billing? Do you know how to do this? Are there checklists that your other techs have signed off on you? Because everyone does something a little different. One of the companies at the school, they have an entire guide, and it's like your techs will sign off, like, are you competent in pulling and resetting a toilet? And so that's how they determine when you're ready to get into a truck. And then you get put in a truck, and it's not like you're necessarily thrown right to the wolves. I'm sure some people do it, but we're going to put you on the things that you're confident with, and taking care of that. Like we have a guy that works for us that he just started his on call. So on call, I do it with him just to make sure that he's not, particularly overwhelmed and not worrying about it. And I want him to be successful. So I go with him to make sure that he has backup just in case he runs into something that he's nervous about. And then we'll take the training wheels off. Now, in service, once you're a tech, eventually you could become maybe a lead tech or supervisor. There's all sorts of different avenues there. But in our field, there's a lot of areas for growth. In commercial, it is a kind of simpler as far as the steps, right? You're a helper, you're an apprentice, you're a technician, then you're a foreman, and you would be over several technicians and apprentices, and you'd be doing part of the job or whatever needs to be done for that day, and you'd be reporting to either a site supervisor or your field supervisor. And then from foreman, the same thing. You can go to site supervisor, field supervisor, maybe estimator, project manager, and so you can work your way up through that. I have a student who's on our board in the PHCC, started out as a kid that was going to college, decided it was too expensive, jumped in the plumbing trade, was an apprentice, became a technician, became quality control. I think, and now he's a project manager. And he went all the way up the ladders. I mean, he works in an office. So you have you have a lot of options in the two sides of this industry that you would like to do to see where you fit.
Is there one side that tends to advance quicker than the other, or is it really
Yeah.
candidate specific with skills, knowledge, personality, like demeanor, all that stuff?
So the way we see it here is, so in commercial, um, they usually become technicians fairly quickly. I mean, it's always hard because there's so many people. Like there are companies that you go from a helper apprentice to tech in a year, and that's pretty tough. But it is still something that happens here. Um, Commercial, you're elevated through usually faster. I mean, a lot of the guys I talk to, they financially make more money in the commercial side starting off, whereas in residential it's slower, but then it becomes more over time than the commercial guys, because not everyone in commercial has the opportunity to become a supervisor or a superintendent, whereas in service everyone gets the opportunity to become a tech, and then there are companies that pay you commission on that. So, I mean, depending on your abilities, the sky's the limit on what you make versus like an hourly thing.
Gotcha. Let's stay on salary real quick if we can. I know it's going to be location specific, so I can't have you answer across the
Yeah.
board, LA, New York, Omaha, right? Differences there, but if you can kind of put a broad stroke, like someone going into this field, what should they be expecting? I used to say like, do you have to work a second job when you're doing it? But like, you know, is it how quickly can you get over six figures? How quickly can you get over six figures in most areas or most kind of scenarios, if you will? Is it high five figures? Like, do the best you can with
Yeah,
kind of
it's
breaking down. Like,
definitely, I mean, it's definitely high five figures, I would say, is the average. When you
okay,
first start out, you probably expect something between like, I don't know, 16 and 20. I hear so many different things in this class, and that usually it elevates fairly quickly. Unless you just don't put any effort in. I mean, we're very, very accustomed to seeing people put effort in and not put effort in. So if you don't think your bosses are watching, I mean, they're gonna know you're not doing it. I mean, it's really a tough. It's not easy to hide that. In service, I mean, I've had plumbers that were in my service, or not my company, but in the class and service that were pulling in $170,000 a year, working in a commission based company, and they were working. I mean, I'm saying that they weren't working 40 hours a week. We're talking 6-7 days a week sometimes, putting in the effort and doing it. And in that particular case, it was he wanted to buy a house, so he dumped every bit of extra time he could into doing it because he wanted the house he wanted. And so but again, commission, there's no upper limit. Depending on
right.
how good you are at what you're doing, there's no upper limit. But yeah, you could expect high five figures, if not going into six figures.
And I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm assuming most of these jobs are, you said 16 to 20 hourly rates, right? There's probably, maybe commercial might be a little bit different, but I'm
That's
assuming most companies are paying an hourly rate.
Yeah. So in
Yep.
commercial, we have and this area is going to be skewed, and I'm going to say this out loud. Somebody's going to be like, "I'm moving there," but we have so many military bases that
Yeah.
the amount of work that goes on federal property, which requires Davis Bacon wages to be paid, is astounding. I mean, it's like these kids get put on like as a technician who maybe been in the field for a couple of years, put on a Davis Bacon job. We did Richmond VA Hospital, for instance, and it was the base rate was $45 an hour. I mean, that's what you got paid, and if you were an hour overtime, it was time and a half on top of that. So those are serious numbers for a 21-year-old that's a technician. Now that's not a helper. Helpers don't get Davis Bacon, but once you're working on your tools and doing that, I mean, you get those things. And I mean, that kind of wage in this area puts commercial, I mean, really quite high on the list.
Yeah, makes sense. You mentioned early on in the conversation, it's kind of a passing comment about, hey, we're looking for people. So I want to talk about competitive fields. So kind of two-pronged here. how easy is it to get into? It sounds like it might be easy, again, location based, but
Yep.
sounds like there's a need for the trades. And then second side, does poaching come in a lot? So you look at someone, you wait for them to get their apprenticeship, they start working, and then you have other companies come out and be like, hey, it's just easier for me to take that employee rather than doing this. Like, can you break down the competition side of things for us?
Yeah, I don't usually see too much of the poaching. The biggest thing that we see, and I have had the union try to actively grab my guys and do stuff, which is, they're allowed to advertise or they're allowed to talk to them, and that's fine. And you hope you do a good enough job with treating your employees that they don't want to jump ship. What we do see is that, and I don't know if this is a systemic problem with education in the country, but the newer guys, a lot of them are paycheck to paycheck. So the issue is not necessarily that I go and I ask somebody else to come work for me. It's that they're always on the hunt for an extra dollar. And if they can find that extra dollar anywhere, then they will jump ship and they will go. So it really is less poaching, and it's more the financial stability of the individual determines whether they're going to be a long-term prospect for you versus, just gonna look for more money somewhere else. And we try to really manage that with we do some financial boot camps and personal finance classes with the guys
Oh, good for you.
to do that. Yeah, it was part of the organization when with PHCC we created a future leaders program that geared to helping the individual instead of the business owner and making them more confident or giving them certain skills to help them advance in their career and hopefully help them not deal with that kind of stuff, that level of stress.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good for you guys. So, Tony, break us down essential skills we're going into here. So, I'm assuming attention to detail is probably one of the ones you want out of a plumber. Water can be quite dangerous and damaging. So, what are some of the essential skills that you find that, hey, someone going into this, if they're going to be successful, they tend to have these skills, and then other maybe on the opposite side, if it makes sense, like, hey, if you come in with these, and you maybe it's more personality traits or something,
Yeah.
but or attributes. You come in with these, we can generally tell it's not going to be a career for you. Can you try to walk us through some of those essentials and
Yeah.
things to look out for?
So it's funny. We had this conversation in school a long time ago, and it was like we were trying to figure out how do you determine who the best candidate is going to be. And in a lot of other fields, you're able to look at certain attributes and certain, things that they've done in their life or their career or in their education that you're like, this person is got what it takes. But in plumbing, and I'll use plumbing specifically, it's really hard to figure that out. And my brother and I were talking about it, and two of them would be your awareness, like where your body is in space, right? And this sounds crazy, but it's like if you're a person that picks up a ladder and you just turn it and you're bouncing it against things, your awareness in the environment that you're in is not. See, it doesn't seem to be very great, and that to me is a recipe for disaster, right? I mean, you're just maybe not aware of your impact on the environment, which can translate to property damage and injuries and that kind of thing. The biggest one that we realized that we would love to put to test to see if it worked was your ability to use tools. Like if you grab a pair of pliers, right? You don't have to know how to do plumbing. You don't have to know how to do anything. But if you can put your own computer desk together that you bought from Office Max with a screwdriver, and you're not fumbling with how to use it, we were like, how do you teach someone the proper way to hold a set of pliers so that they feel like an extension of yourself? And so when you meet someone that has no plumbing experience whatsoever, but they've tinkered around with their dirt bike and they know how to use a ratchet wrench, and that you could tell by how they're holding it, you're like, that person, if they like this, they will be successful. Because tools for us are an extension of ourselves. I mean, I don't care who you are, without tools, you are never going to be that great of a plumber. I mean, it's impossible to tighten stuff. It's impossible to do. I mean, you have to have them. And so just knowing how that works, how those things work in your hands, really says a lot about where your future is. And so if you're a tinkerer, If you play with tools, you like tools, you're able to use them, and they don't feel awkward and anything like that, then you probably have a shot at doing this.
Is that something that you found you can teach? Right, you can teach someone how to use something, but to have it naturally fit in their hand, like a wrench is a good example. Does it
Yeah,
naturally fit in their hand? Is that something where practice will win out over time?
I don't. I'm not sure. We had an employee that bright, really bright guy, just did not handle things like tools or do everything the way that he needed to. And it got to the point where I was concerned. I was like, you have to slow down. Like you're going to injure yourself. And that it never understood that. And it became, at one point, it just became apparent that this was going to become a person that was going to get hurt on the job and who knows how bad. And we needed to be like, I think you need a different career. Um, it's I don't know. The way I think about that answer is my dad is a really good guitar player and he's self-taught, and so he didn't teach us how because he wasn't taught. He didn't have the skills.
Right, right.
I don't really know where my tool ability came from, and so my idea of like trying to teach you how to do it, it's like it was this natural part of me. So I never had an aha moment to be like, well, think about the tool as X, and then you're like, oh, okay, that works. I'll do it. So that is something that I find difficult to try to explain how to do this to a person who's completely a layman in the use of tools.
That makes tons of sense. They say that about like the best athletes, like Wayne Gretzky at hockey,
Yep.
right? So moderately successful coach, but he always said one of his biggest challenges was the game came naturally to him, and how do you teach that, right? So
Yeah.
it's the same thing. It's like I don't know how to tell a guy who's not as talented as me to do what I did, right? So
Yeah.
that makes tons of sense. Tony, how about some of the most challenging aspects of this career?
Um, for me, and I'm going to say my brother too, even though he's not, he probably can't hear me. Um, it's saying no, and that's for like myself in my position. I mean, when Rob and I started, it was just us, and we said yes to everybody. And I mean, if you needed us, yes, 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 we'll be there to our detriment. I mean, to running around all hours of the night, to working to death, and just never taking a moment for ourselves to do anything. And I think that goes all the way to the employees. We try to be careful when somebody needs help on the weekend. It's like, well, don't necessarily call one of the guys because he's going to say yes to you every time. And he needs to be able to be home with his family too, so you have to be careful with that. And you need to know your own limits. Again, if you're working as a bank teller, and no offense to bank tellers, and you're getting to the point where you're burned out and you're exhausted, your counts in your drawers might be off. For us, you might fall through a ceiling. You might get burned, you might get cut, you might get really hurt on something. And some of those things could be permanent. I mean, you don't need it. I was working with my brother and turned to grab a ladder and tore my L4, L5, and for the rest of my life, my leg will be numb. Based on just a simple movement that I did because I wasn't paying attention. I was talking to the homeowner, and when the ladder needed to be moved, I turned around real quick. I jumped to get it. Just simple things like that. But it's when you know that you're at your limit, say something. There is a lot of issues within the trades where it's like you got to be tough, right? And if you're really afraid of heights, it doesn't matter. Don't say that out loud. You got to get on that roof. Well, I'm not the best on roofs. My brother's excellent, so he's safer on a roof because he is totally confident and really quite good at it. Um, if you're not, you got to say something. So just trying to say the word no, or I mean, not necessarily no, but just know your limits so that you can protect yourself because your body is the investment in this. We are in an interesting thing,
Absolutely.
right? There's not a whole lot of paraplegic plumbers or plumbers that are blind. It's really very important that your body is physically there to be able to do the work because you need to have it.
Makes sense. Opposite side of that question, Tony. How about some of the most rewarding part of work in the career?
I mean, helping people. For me, it's different, right? For in my career, the things that are the most important to me are my students' achievements. And I mean, I have a ledger and at my house, and every certain amount of time, when I know a bunch of them have gotten their license, I will sit down, I'll pour myself a drink, and I will write in their names, their license number, and when they got it. And it's like these people I directly was the instructor of, whether they liked me or didn't. I was still there, and now they are a licensed individual, and I care very much about the progression of the trade. So for me, it's always pushing it forward and making sure that they have access to me and any information that they possibly need to be able to move forward. And for me, absolutely most rewarding part is when students I've had 4 years ago send me a text message and they say, "Hey, Bertolino, I got my license. I just wanted to tell you first." And it's like, I had a teacher when I was in high school that was the one that meant the most to me, that I felt really changed the course of my life. And I always hope that I could be that for one of them. And so seeing those messages and stuff makes me think that I'm closer to that goal. Um, Before I taught, helping people out. I mean, when you go to somebody's house in the middle of the night and it's flooding and, they look at you like you're a hero. I mean, you stopped the damage to their home. You stopped the issue that was going on. Everybody was awake in the house, or you get to communicate with so many different people of all different walks of life, and they all have one thing in common. They need you. And so most of the time, they're very happy to talk to you. You get to learn about where they came from, the events in their life. We've had some amazing customers throughout my career and our lives that came from so many different places and had so many cool stories to tell us about where they came from. And we were united because there was an issue or because they needed something done with plumbing. And so it just puts you in front of so many people, and that's pretty cool if you like talking to people and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's beautiful. All right, as we start to close down here, you might have answered this already, and you could pass on it if you want to. But uh, going into the field, there's always something, regardless of the career, that either surprises you, that is pretty permanent or pervasive in the career, or just simply surprise that no one ever tells you, right? So, is there anything in the plumbing industry that either no one ever told you that you're like, hey man, I wish someone would have, or just surprised you that you didn't expect to coming in?
Um, you know, it shouldn't have surprised me, but it was one of the things, right? And this might sound silly, but it's like knee pads and stuff, like the personal protective equipment. You have you're working with these guys, and they all tell you, like every older tech I've ever worked with, when I was an apprentice, all the stuff. It's like this industry beats you up. It makes your knees bad, hurts your elbows, it makes you sore. Eventually, you're gonna be like me. Your back's gonna be an issue, and you just don't believe it. At the time, at 20 years old, you feel like you're on top of the world. I didn't wake up with aches and pains, and it's just not gonna happen to me. And so even though I was told, and I do try to impress this on my students, I'm like, you can't. It's very hard to convince somebody to be safe when they've never had anything wrong because they don't understand what could happen, and it's not on their radar, and they've never experienced it. Um, I wish I had taken more consideration into that. My brother was actually more safe about it, and he was the one who was like, "You shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that by yourself." And I'm just like, "Well, it's not a big deal." And then I'm the one who ends up getting injured. Um, so that was important. The other thing that I really wish that I had known um, going in, that because I was a fourth generation plumber, was that there were going to be a group of people that really didn't respect what we did. And the limited understanding of plumbing by the general public sometimes turns into, you couldn't go to college, so you became a plumber, or you
Yeah.
weren't capable of this, so you became a plumber. I had a guy when I was younger bring his ODU diploma out and say, had I gone to college, I wouldn't be working under his sink. And I was a nice kid. I never said anything bad about it, but it stuck with me as like, what a crappy thing to say to somebody when I was trying to contribute to society. I was working. I wasn't a drain on the system, and I was just trying to support myself and have an apartment and pay my bills. And, I was told that basically I was less than because of the career I chose. And you will find them. They will come out, people that assume that they are better than you because of what you're doing. And you need to understand that they're wrong and don't take it personal, but understand it will happen so that you're not surprised when that conversation happens. And that's the most important.
I think it's a really important thing for you to say. And I think you're 100% true, because even growing up, right, I didn't have a lot of college in my family. And it was always, I think construction worker is probably the telltale, but it was like, hey, go to college or you'll be doing construction the rest of your life. Right. And you're like, okay, you don't really get it as a kid, but it's pervasive, 100%. So I really appreciate you saying that.
Yeah,
it's true.
I tell my students, right, that intelligence is problem solving, right? It doesn't matter how many languages you speak. It doesn't matter what you've got. It's how quickly you can solve a more and more complex problem. That is how we measure intelligence, right? I mean, we say a dog is smarter than a cat, not because they speak English, but because of problem solving. And plumbers and tradespeople are problem solving every day. I mean, there's no one can tell you the measure of your own intelligence based on the career you're doing. It's just that simple, and you shouldn't let them.
Very good. Tony, anything I neglected to ask you that you feel is important for the audience to know?
No, I don't think so, unless you've got something that, I'm not sure.
I got nothing, man. I had water damage last Christmas, so I've got a newfound respect. So, Tony, it's a pleasure having you. Thanks for providing the insights. If someone wants to reach out to you, ask you a question on careers, find out more about your business, we'll link it all in the show notes, but feel free to throw out any resources, contact info, just verbally as well.
Yeah, you put it down there. They can contact me I guess you have my email. I don't know if you guys do. You can put it down there. People, I'm happy to help anyone that's trying to become a plumber or HVAC or anything. I'll be able to find you a spot, plug you into the right direction at least. And if you can't get a hold of me, really take a look at the PHCC. I know I've said it before, but that's our professional organization, and that's how I look at it. And, they have all the same resources except for they're across all the states. The foundation in particular, they've got education and all these things. So send them an email and they will be able to point you in the right direction and help you find qualified, quality, companies to help you get in or answer the questions, at least in your area, so that you know what you're getting into if you go into the trades.
Awesome. We'll link all that. So Tony Bertolino, everyone, plumbing apprenticeship instructor and operations manager at Rob Bertolino Plumbing and Heating. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you want to explore other careers or share yours with us, check out our website. Until next time, go Bills.